Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I'm Linda. You might just be able to hear my voice as opposed to seeing me. I want to introduce the lovely Nick Vaughan, who is a clinical nutritionist. Nick came into my realm quite recently, and I got to say, I'm so incredibly impressed with this woman. She is just as passionate as I am about helping midlife women in particular. And she's also got quite a fantastic story behind her journey into becoming a passionate nutritionist, helping midlife women. Like me, she has a son who's got some very challenging health conditions. And Nick used to be a physicist working in the aerodynamics, the aeronautical industry, no doubt, no less. And then with her son developing an autoimmune disorder, arthritis, she ended up switching her incredible research talents and her scientific brain into really working out how she could help her son best. And then through that sort of story, ended up becoming a nutritionist, and now is able to help midlife women in particular. So Nick, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome.
Thanks, Linda. I'm so happy to be here. It's been lovely connecting with this women's community, because it's important that we start with ourselves, isn't it? Notwithstanding helping our children, but we help ourselves as well. And then, they learn from us and we can influence them and our whole families. So it's brilliant. I'm a great believer in all of what you are doing as well. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, brilliant. Well, yes, as you said, when we put our own oxygen masks on first, when we sort out our own health and well-being, that is actually the biggest gift we can give our families, because our children learn from what we do, not from what we say. And if we are saying to them, stop eating sweets, stop eating chocolate, but we are actually, chucking down the wine and not eating optimally and having pasta every night, then that's actually what they are going to repeat, isn't it? And I, the same with fitness and well-being. When they see us taking time out for ourselves, when they see mum saying, I need to go and do a guided relaxation, I just need to go and do some yoga, I'm going to go out for a walk by myself because I need that time in nature just to calm down, that's teaching them that self-care is not selfish. It is literally how we survive and then how we thrive. And I know you agree, which is why I just love you so.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I've found with my son as well, for him understanding the why. So why am I saying no to all of the sugar? Because it's really inflammatory. You don't want the arthritis to come back. He gets it, rather than have I just said, no, you can't have that, without telling him why and getting him to understand why. And that's what I really feel so passionate about, the whole nutrition. Like I see my opportunities when I'm having consultations with women to be able to impart the knowledge, so that they don't see, like the social media out there, they get so many things saying, don't drink too much alcohol, go vegetarian, eat phytoestrogens. They get so much, you get so much information, but you're not always told why. So it's the same with my son, help him understand why and how that's then related to his health concerns and his health conditions. And it's the same with women, it's the same with all of us. If we can understand, why we want to eat complex carbohydrates rather than refined carbohydrates, it makes it a lot easier to then make those choices, because you understand what's going on in your body. So I'm a big believer in the science, the kind of the unpicking of why certain foods influence our health in beneficial ways and in harmful ways as well. So it's good to really understand, and that's what I want to do, is just try and help impart the knowledge so that you can all be more take more ownership of your own food cupboard, how you're creating your dishes for your families, everything. You understand a little bit more about the why.
Let's do this. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. The why. And 100%, when I'm teaching my yoga, I'm constantly talking about the why behind what I am doing. So I believe that if women actually understand how, for example, their diaphragm is working with their pelvic diaphragm when they're standing in alignment, how their breathing affects everything else, including how we think, and how our whole body is functioning. When we understand the why, then we're more likely to do things because it makes sense. And I love that your science brain makes the why so clear. So on that lovely intro, Nick, why should we be concerned about the therapeutic food on our plate in midlife, and what should, for the general person, that plate look like?
Yeah, really great question. I think what's probably a great starting point is to understand what's happening to us in perimenopause, in midlife. What's happening to us? What's happening to our hormones? And the beginning kind of starts with all of this, because then when we can see what's going on, we can see how to support ourselves nutritionally, and in a general kind of well-being space. So during perimenopause, it's called peri because we have this period of quite a long time before we actually then enter into menopause, which is when all of our periods have stopped for over a year. Then we're in the menopause, we transitioned and we're in menopause. But that whole period before that happens can last, generally on average, it lasts about 10 years. So in that time, our body is slowly changing into a different phase. And during that time, we will be having a roller coaster ride of our hormones. So in particular, we've got peaks and troughs of estrogen. Our progesterone levels might be dropping a little bit. Our cortisol, our stress hormones, are going to be changing. Maybe not because we're where we are in our age, but of what we're doing in our life at this time as well, with, kind of balancing maybe aging parents, maybe having to consider job, family stresses with young kids or teenagers. All of these things are going to be influencing how our body is functioning. And so the kind of the key that I look at is where you are in that cycle, and what your hormones are actually doing will actually help you understand what foods are going to be best for you. But there is, as you say, like there's an overall therapeutic plate, which I think is the fundamentals which really need to get adhered to.
Can I just jump in there, Nick? Because I think what you've just said is super important. And I found this a massive paradigm shift myself when I really understood this, that for the average woman, the woman who's at the sort of the top of the bell curve, if you like, the beginning part of perimenopause up to, say, 45, if you like, 45, 46, midway through those 40s, for most of us, it's our progesterone, which is lower than our estrogen. So often, we are finding we have anovulatory cycles, we get more and more of those, and our progesterone is relatively steadily dropping down. And of course, progesterone has a massive effect on our gut, etc. And then from our mid-40s onwards, that's when we're getting these big surges of the estrogen as our ovaries are going, one more baby, last chance for baby, if you like. And it's that differential between the estrogen and the progesterone that can be really tricky and cause a lot of symptoms. But then, and sort of when we're getting towards our 50s, that's when the loss of estrogen, the estrogen starts to really plummet, especially around 50, 51, 52, plummeting down as we go into the actual final year of menopause itself. And so that stage can be a little bit of a different picture from the beginning of perimenopausal stage. So I thought that was really good how you said that kind of 10 years, 12 years of perimenopause, we can actually need to be looking at different things on our plate over that span. Was I hearing you?
Absolutely right. And not just what's on our plate, but how we are eating as well. So I think when you have got the demands of estrogen, for example, estrogen is really good at helping us become insulin sensitive. Estrogen really helps us make use of blood sugar. Yeah, it helps us, but we sometimes maybe will have slight kind of cravings of carbohydrates and things like that when estrogen is rising. So we can eat slightly differently depending on where we are in that, with what our hormones are doing. And you'll notice kind of as you go through the perimenopause, you lose the estrogen, your estrogen levels start to drop, then our pattern of fat distribution changes. We can't eat how we used to be eating in our 30s and in our early 40s, whereas before we would not have had fat depositing around our middle, for example. Estrogen tells your body what to do with fat. It tells your body where to store it. Insulin is the hormone that kind of helps with the fat storage and tells your cells what to do with energy, but estrogen directs it. Estrogen will say, I want some fat on my breasts, I want fat on my buttocks. You think of kind of female pattern, female shape, and that's estrogen's role. Estrogen tells your body where to be putting down the fat. So as we lose the effect of estrogen, as we kind of have the periods of low, then we fall into more of a male pattern shape. So we find ourselves having that slight little muffin top over the jeans. We kind of start to gather fat around our middle, and that's because of the loss of estrogen. And so kind of supporting ourselves with choosing foods which have got less of a fat promoting action. So this is kind of moving away from carbohydrates, which our liver will turn into fat quite happily, kind of moving away from the carbohydrates as you're losing the estrogen is really, really helpful. So I love the way that we can adapt the way in which we eat to just try and offset, if you like, some of those more like less what we would like. We don't really want to be depositing fat around the middle. So yes, certainly.
We often do associate the word, all of us were 80s 90s babies, so when we talk about we need to not be looking at fat producing foods, and we're talking in that later part of perimenopause, so closer towards 50, I know that a lot of people go, fats then are bad. But could you please drill down a little bit into the role of good fats in particular on our own natural, not ovarian, but adrenal and brain production of key hormones, and talk about fat that we eat as opposed to fat that's created from carbohydrates and the insulin.
Great. I'm so glad you brought this up, because I remember my childhood seeing my mum obsessed about counting how many grams per fat there was in things, and as long as you had under 3% fat, you were okay to eat it. Fat was really demonized as fat will make you fat, and fat doesn't make you fat. Fat absolutely does not make you fat. We need fat. Fat provides us with greater energy per gram than carbohydrates as well. Remember that in terms of needing to feel energized, we'll get more of that from fat than we will from energy. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute go and get kind of your like deep fat fried foods. That's the wrong kind of fat. Deep fat fried foods and kind of looking at things that are going to be quite a burden on your digestive function is not the kind of fat we want to be eating. But we think about fat, and in particular our healthy fats, which will be coming from fatty fish, is a really great example. They're really, really rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are the building block of our cell membranes. And when we think of having a low fat diet, generally we'll be replacing it with carbohydrate because you want to feel full on something. So you probably will be consuming more carbohydrates, which your liver, unless you're exercising crazy amounts, your liver will say, look, we don't need all that carbohydrate. We're going to turn that into fat anyway for you, because that's a much more efficient way to store that excess glucose, unless you're using it in your muscle. So we really want to shift into kind of eating lots of healthy fats. So full fat dairy, if you can eat dairy, is brilliant, you know, in terms of providing, you know, you think of fat, but it's also all of your fat soluble vitamins as well that you quite often get in a lot of these foods. And then your omega-3 fats, you quite often will hear of omega-3 fatty acids or omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-3s are the ones which have got such beautiful effects in our body. You know, they're really anti-inflammatory. They're the ways in which we then metabolize these omega-3 fatty acids produce fabulous anti-inflammatory chemicals that get circulated in our whole body. And our brain is mainly made up of DHA, which is one of the omega-3 fats. So our brain needs omega-3 fatty acids. That's really interesting, actually. I'll just a slight tangent on this. There was a great deal of research was looking at the effect of antidepressants on people that were depressed. So things like citrulline or other antidepressants versus high dose omega-3 fatty acids. And there were, in some of these trials, there is very minimal difference on the impact, on the efficacy, if you like, of antidepressant effects from a high dose omega-3 fatty acids, because our brain needs it. You know, our brain helps. And you think of our brain function, you know, estrogen has a huge effect on our brain. Progesterone is really promoting with GABA, which is a really calming neurotransmitter. So as progesterone is going and our brain is feeling a little bit more frazzled, we need our omega-3 fats to really try and help with our healthy brain function. So definitely kind of don't fear fat. It contains so many good things. And yeah, it's a message to get out there, actually, because I think that when you look at foods that are lower in fat, they will have to have something in them to make them more palatable, you know, and that generally is going to be sugar. So, you know, and your body will turn that into fat anyway. So just
that visceral fat, won't it, around the organs around the belly. So I just wanted to jump in when you know, you keep saying things that I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. The fact that women have estrogen rich brains, men have testosterone rich brains. And it's only really been researched properly in the last few years since the Me Too movement, hasn't it? And so when we now understand that women need these omega-3 fats, especially when our ovaries don't produce that estrogen for our brain, we've got to allow our adrenal glands and our, you know, and our brains and also the fat cells of our bodies to produce estrogen for our brain through our food. And it's because if you could speak a little bit about the pregnenolone side of things, you know, we need, in order to create the precursor to our hormones, we need to create pregnenolone, and that is created from good fats. So
cholesterol.
Low fat diet, your brain's going to fry.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But you know, so all of our sex hormones, they, you know, they all come from the same structure. You know, it's kind of you when you look at the chemistry molecules of hormones, they're really quite simple. But we're very complex. So we're not simple at all. But everything comes down to fat and fat structure. And if you don't have enough cholesterol, for example, you know, like you're still talking about the need for kind of healthy cell membranes. And you think about how the estrogen that you have, you want for it to be able to dock onto your cells, attach to those estrogen receptors, and have effect. Okay, and to do that, you need to have really nice cellular level activity going on. Now, if you are only consuming fats that are rigid in nature. You know, maybe they are not the healthy omega-3 fats. Maybe they're more of the more pro-inflammatory omega-6 fats that you get from kind of palm oil, from vegetable oils, from seed oils. A lot of our processed foods will be quite heavy in that cheaper kind of fuel, cheaper kind of fat. Then these fats get incorporated into those cells and those cell membranes. And we remember that for estrogen to have any effect in our body, whether it's in our brain or whether it's in our skin, to keep our skin nice and supple, it has to dock onto its own receptor. And if our cell membranes are made of rigid kind of structure because you've been having lots of omega-6 fats, then those receptors don't work so well. So then even if you've got estrogen, even if you've got progesterone, the effect of the progesterone or the estrogen just won't be as good because the cell receptors won't be working as effectively as they should do. So the way in which your body will incorporate, we are what we eat, okay? So we eat omega-3 fats, they'll be incorporated into our cells, our very cells, you know, that will be helping us. If we eat omega-6 fats, which are on the processed foods and the seed oils, we'll be incorporating that into our cells, and that will affect the functionality of our cells. So yeah, we are what we eat, definitely, and we are what we eats. So, you know, in terms of looking at the quality of the food that you're eating is also really important, you know. So, and if you're eating, well, I don't want to kind of, we kind of can go off in so many little tangents here, can't we? But, you know, if you're looking at,
you know, so confused because you just mentioned there about the cholesterol as well. And, you know, gosh, I remember in the 90s, everyone was like, oh, I'm just going to have an omelet with just the white, you know, white omelet only, please, leaving out all the nutrients of the yellow, the yolk of the egg. So, you know, we now know, I think you've explained beautifully that actually good fats, clean fats, olive oil, you know, eating your olives or your flax seeds and your all of your nuts and the good, and the fish, obviously oily fish, and maybe you could just basically tell us some of the good things we should focus on. But
yes,
those things, good, they're going to help our cells become nice and healthy, and they are the good types of estrogen that we want to be binding onto those cells. Your fish and chips, your sort of rancid oils that we get at palm oil, etc. Maybe, you know, not good quality meats, sausages, etc. Not good. They're going to cause that inflammation. It's going to cause a dominance in the bad estrogen, the estrogen a bit more. So getting that adiposity, the fat around the tummy. So we've got focus on the good. But cholesterol, you mentioned cholesterol. Please, could you just say a bit more about the role of cholesterol and those good cholesterols that we need?
yeah, and cholesterol is the building block of so much in our body. Yeah, so, you know, you think about brain function, we do need cholesterol. Cholesterol again alongside fat generally, you know, has been pretty demonized in terms of the diet heart hypothesis and links to high cholesterol linking to heart disease. And I think there's a lot of debate about that because I feel that cholesterol has been demonized and sugar has been kind of left to just go in by the back door and actually cause a lot more damage to us for our heart. You know, it's a bigger thing to worry about is actually going to be sugar. But no, cholesterol is really important. I mean, it's the building block of so much, the building blocks of our, you know, ability to have good neurotransmitters. It's kind of tries really in terms of our brain health. It's so important. But I think that you really need to, when we're looking at all things with nutrition, we want to, and it's sometimes a little bit cliched, isn't it? But we want to think how our ancestors might have eaten our foods. And, you know, they won't have just had the egg white. They will have had the yolk with it as well, with all the richness of the vitamins and the minerals and the choline, which is super important for brain development. You know, they will have eaten the whole parts of the meat, the animals, everything, you know, in terms of all of the benefits that you'd get from eating liver, which is also going to be rich in cholesterol and rich in you know, all of the fat soluble vitamins that you get in the liver as well. But I think that where we need to be a little bit careful on things like cholesterol is just making sure that we've got really good gut health, you know, really good. When I talk about gut, I'm meaning everything. You know, I'm meaning like our liver, our gallbladder. You know, we need to be able to excrete the cholesterol that we have. So, you know, eating foods that are rich in cholesterol is fine, and our body will make its own cholesterol in the liver because it's so vital. But we need to be able to excrete it. We need to be able to push it out of our bodies as well, which means good gallbladder function, because that's where bile comes in, you know, and bile is our main excretory route of all cholesterol. So if we've got poor gallbladder function, we won't be excreting we won't be excreting cholesterol, sorry. And we need good gut health because we want our gut to be able to excrete the cholesterol as well. We don't want it to be reabsorbed because we don't have beneficial bacteria that are helping to break down the cholesterol in our guts. And we want to have bowel movements every single day because that's our excretory route of cholesterol. So kind of we need to look at this as a whole rather than like isolated. Yes, it's fine to just eat cholesterol food and not to be fearful of cholesterol. We need to consider what we then do, what our bodies are then doing to cholesterol when it's in our body, and making sure that
you're talking about the pathway. Good to get the nutrients, etc., from whole foods that contain cholesterol, correct? Yeah, so like eggs and organs from animals, and I guess olive oil, etc. Is this correct?
Yeah,
yeah,
fat, yes, yeah.
But once the body's done its job and got the nutrients out, we need to then be able to excrete the waste products, if you like, properly. So is that what you're saying? And I know it's the same with our estrogen. We need to be able to excrete that. We don't want to reabsorb estrogen by having constipation, because that's when we can get into this whole estrogen dominance problem. So tell us, what can we be doing to optimize our gut health and optimize that gallbladder function? Because I find that really fascinating.
It's such a fascinating area. So just to quickly touch on the liver out of all of this, out of managing to clear your estrogen hormones and detoxify the hormones, you know, you're talking about estrogen dominance and things like that. So, and with cholesterol as well. So your liver is probably your most important organ out of all of this. We want to really do what we can to protect our liver. So a fascinating is that your liver will be taking every single minute, 30% of your whole blood flow, 30% is just getting straight into your liver. Your liver is incredibly intensely working to help you with over 400 different functions right now, every single minute. Our liver is a beautiful, beautiful organ that really needs our support. So how we can support our liver, there's a number of ways that we can, but I guess before that, why we need to support our liver. So you mentioned about clearing our hormones. You know, we want to make sure with our estrogen and all of our hormones, actually, in order to be excreted from our body, once we've used the hormones in our body, they enter the liver, and the liver will help to make it into a form that can then be excreted. And it's really, really careful, really, really important that we're careful to make sure we're doing what we can to help our liver excrete it in a nice, safe pathway. So there are things, I think maybe we talk about it in a separate session, because it's so much that we can go into around this. But you know, your hormones can go down a number of different pathways, which are hugely influenced by what you eat. Hugely. And this is where cruciferous vegetables become so important in perimenopause, because when we have got our hormones that we're wanting to be kind of excreting down nice, safe pathways, we need to support our liver with nutrients to detoxify them down really nice, safe pathways. So you'll have heard about brassica vegetables. Everybody is talking about brassica vegetables. The reason why brassicas are so important for us is they contain compounds called indole 3 carbanols that actually help push your hormone excretion down a really, really nice, safe route. A really nice, safe route. One which can be excreted really effectively. One which won't promote high estrogen kind of dominance type of metabolites. So brassicas really, really help to detox your hormones. They help support your liver. So in your liver, you've got so many different kind of processes that you can go down to metabolize hormones, and estrogen can be metabolized in 3 different ways, and brassica vegetables will really help with that. So I say to all of my perimenopausal women, please have brassica vegetables every single day. You know, every single day.
Broccoli,
sprouts, your cauliflowers. You think of all of the things which are you know, they're generally quite green, and they're going to be yeah, well, broccoli is probably the best one, which I find you can get the broccoli spears, and you can get the whole broccoli and eat the trunk of the broccoli as well, eat the whole thing. But yeah, your green leafy veg will really help as well, provide folate, which also is in support of that. So in my plate, you know, and I'm thinking, why am I doing this again? I'm supporting my liver, and I need to support my liver because it also will be helping store all my fat soluble vitamins, which I need. It'll be helping get rid of my excess cholesterol. My liver will be helping kind of convert fat to glucose, which we want for kind of vital actually for energy production. It helps convert our thyroid hormones into our active form. So our liver is the master organ here, and we want to support it. And brassica veg are really, you know, so helpful with this. And also just
that's great to feel like we've got something we can focus in on, because I know that I'm not alone in finding that gut health is an issue. You know, I get quite windy now at the drop of a hat. So knowing that I can go, right, okay, my focus is with each meal is to clean up my liver, to care for my liver. Would that be a good, you know, there's one thing to focus on? Is that, would you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. And then when we think about what might be we doing that might be harming our liver, or not being helpful, might not be actually directly harming it, but not being helpful. And that's to think about your overall toxic load, you know, is one area. So, you know, we've spoken a lot about food, but there are many other things in our environment that will be adding extra burden. So if our liver is this powerhouse which we are needing to clear everything, you know, our liver is helping get rid of kind of, it's clearing your blood of infections. If you've got a virus, it is, you know, it's really a very helpful organ for us as well. But if it's having to work really hard in also detoxifying plastics that we're exposing ourselves to, because we're microwaving in Tupperware boxes, maybe something really super nutritious, but it's frozen out the freezer and it needs to be thawed, and I've got to eat it for dinner tonight. You know, don't use plastic in a microwave. You know, those plastics will then get absorbed into your food, and it's your liver that will have to do the job to try and clear all of that up for you. What else? Just look at your personal care products. You know, are they clean? Do they have phthalates in them? Do they have PCBs? Do they have all of these chemicals, or are you choosing nice, clean cleansing products, clean beauty products if you're using beauty products? Because our skin is a huge absorb sponge that, you know, all of those chemicals then also get into your bloodstream and then into your liver, and then your liver's having to do this at the same time as trying to detoxify your hormones and clear your blood of infections and, you know, do all of that stuff. It'll be really compromised if it's faced with an onslaught of chemicals that are coming from your environment. So that would be the other kind of area to look at. What are you doing, kind of not necessarily food wise, but supporting your liver by eating the brassicas, and, you know, being really nicely hydrated with water is really good. But then don't, on the other hand, load yourself up with toxic burden.
Now, one of the questions that came in was about alcohol. So one of the ladies emailed me saying that she's finding she just has the worst hangovers now, and she understands that, you know, people say you shouldn't drink so much when you're in midlife, but you're right now explaining the why. We all love a little, you know, a wind down drink, but can you explain to us why, especially in these years just coming up to actual menopause, unfortunately, you know, the poor liver just can't really cope so much with that wine or tonic?
Well, there's actually probably two areas to look at. So the liver is one, and then your gut health, the effect of alcohol on your gut is the other one. So just starting off with the liver. So your liver is really cytotoxic. So that means it kills, alcohol is cytotoxic. So it is very damaging to cells. So your liver, alcohol is a priority number one, you know, for your liver, to try and help with detoxifying that and taking it away from being harmful. So that is why kind of the liver is already under quite a bit of burden, because it's trying to cope with our fluctuating hormones and clearing that out anyway. But we don't, you know, adding alcohol into that, we will find it harder to process the alcohol. But going on to your gut health, I think this is, some people find that this is even worse, you know, is that alcohol, when it has been metabolized, it has a byproduct called acetaldehyde. And what acetaldehyde does in your gut, have you heard of acetaldehyde?
Oh my gosh, I'm just having all these little things springing up in my brain right now. Yeah, carry on.
So what acetaldehyde does in your gut is actually disrupts the lovely tight junctions that are in between your epithelial cells, your cells that are lining your intestine. Okay, so if you imagine your gut as a tube, and then inside your small intestine you've got the contents of everything that you've eaten. You've also got bacteria, and you've got mucus secretions that are happening to try and help with the digestion, and it's all happening in this tube, and you want that tube to be contained from your bloodstream. Okay, and sitting on the other side of this tube is your bloodstream, and what is separating that is only one cell thick. It's called your epithelial cells, and it's like these little guys, these little cells. They're only, you know, they're not very, it's not like your skin where you've got kind of 7 layers of these cells. It's one cell thick. It's very delicate. And acetaldehyde from alcohol actually disrupts the junctions, the proteins that are keeping your cells stuck together. Okay, acetaldehyde will break that apart, and it causes a leaky gut. So you've heard of leaky gut probably in the context of overall gut health. Alcohol really disrupts that. Now, why that is more of a problem during menopause is that estrogen also really helps keep our junctions nice and tight together. So as we lose estrogen, we can become more prone to leaky gut anyway. And then you add in the fact that you're going to be drinking alcohol, which is also going to be causing leaky gut. Now, what happens when you have leaky gut? You will get maybe some onset of some allergies happening. you might have an onset of an autoimmune condition happening. You know, quite often we see this picture as women go through menopause, they develop autoimmune conditions, or they might develop kind of sudden bloating and discomfort to foods that for years and years has been absolutely fine to them. They might develop allergies or like atopic dermatitis, where they've never had kind of eczema or atopic dermatitis before. And so much of it can be rooted back to your gut. And alcohol is another factor that is just going to be disrupting the harmony that has happened, you know, is trying to happen in your gut, and the integrity of that gut lining. So alcohol is, yeah, we all love an odd glass of wine is fine, but you will find as you go through menopause that you can't drink as much as you used to. You will feel the effects of it so much more than you used to. But it's not a bad thing if it then makes us drink a bit less, you know, that because it's not good for us to drink, you know, too much wine and alcohol anyway. So I take it as a blessing myself.
That's amazing, Nick. I think knowing the why, I love that you've just in my mind now that very, very thin, one cell deep lining, and really it's our job to try and protect that lining, because if we have that leaky gut and those membranes are starting to create space where molecules of food and sugars and inflammatory stuff can get into our bloodstream and start affecting our joints and our brain and everything. Now I really like that, because I'm thinking I've got to try and do what I can to keep that integrity of my gut lining, just look after it. It's precious.
Yeah, yeah. And you think of the kind of things that will nourish your gut lining. You know, I always look at a plate of food as an opportunity to nourish your body. You know, don't look at it just as fuel. You look at your plate in front of you and you think, is this going to be nourishing? Am I and in terms of your gut lining, you know, have I maybe got some really good quality protein here? You know, you think of your cells, protein is like the building block of our cells. So am I eating all the amino acids that I need, you know, to try and build up that? And I'm actually a massive fan of bone broth for exactly that reason. You know, I'm famous in my family for stinking out the kitchen every single week after roast dinner. You know, and the reason why is that we want the goodness that is in those bones. You know, we want them because it is so nourishing for our gut. And in perimenopause, we want to do everything we can to set ourselves up for success when it comes to our gut health. And bone broth, like in my fridge right now, even though we're Friday, you know, I've still got leftovers. I make liters of the stuff on a weekend, and then throughout the week they're in jam jars, and I just pour whatever I'm cooking, absolutely everything, you know, like instead of water I'll use a little bit of bone broth. And it's just that kind of continual, you look at your plate and you think, am I nourishing so
I love
that's
that.
great.
Look at all my notes. I've just done pages of notes, my goodness me. And you know, when you're talking about the nourishing and nurturing, I'm thinking that's what us women are good at. You know, if it was a sick child, we'd be like, right, what can we do for the sick child to build them up, to nourish them, to be taking away the toxins and giving them all the environment, the cuddly warmth, the hydration, nutrition to build them up. And really, if we can take that mentality, that female natural mentality, and take it into our gut health and our liver health, and our deeply caring for our bodies so that our bodies can function, so then we can then help our own families better. I love your terminology.
Yeah, and you think about how we want to be mood stable too, you know, when we've got our families that we're looking after, and we've got our loved ones, whether it's our parents or our siblings or our, you know, our immediate family and our friends, you know, we want to be stable in our mood. And our mood is so influenced by what we eat. It's been absolutely proven now that our gut bacteria, for example, you know, they have a direct telephone hotline to our brain. You know, they communicate. Our gut bacteria produce neurotransmitters that are telling our brain everything's fine. You know, they're calming down the brain. And so again, you look at your plate and you think, am I giving my gut bacteria stuff that they're going to want to eat? You know, that's the purpose of things like your vegetables and your fiber. It's not really to nourish you. Yes, it is to nourish you, you know, and you want to get all of the lovely plant compounds and plant chemicals, etc. But actually, a lot of that food will be digested by your gut bacteria. And then your gut bacteria, in thanking you, will be producing neurotransmitters. They'll be producing anti-inflammatory compounds. They'll be soothing your brain. And it's a fascinating area of research is around the gut-brain axis. It's really exploding in the last kind of 5-10 years, and it will be a huge area in the future as well. But, you know, we can do that. We can do that by just making sure we've got great diversity of foods on our plate every day. You know, don't get stuck in a rut of eating the same thing. Just throw in all sorts. You know, you want to cook with some onions, don't just cook with a brown onion, cook with a brown onion, a red onion, a shallot, you know, like, because your gut bacteria, some will like the shallot and some will like the red onion. And we want to increase that diversity. I have a challenge that I like to give, and that is just to write down in a week, write down how many, you know, as you're cooking, how many different plant foods you're eating, you know, as you're cooking them, as you're eating. And you include your herbs, you include your spices, all of these count, and then tally it up at the end of the week. And if you've got to 30, you've done so well. And then next week, see if you can get to 40. You know, and just try and increase the diversity of what you're eating, because it's your microbiome that will thank you for it. So just thinking back about our mood, and, you know, we're really susceptible in perimenopause of having mood swings, you know, irritability, and a lot of that will just be coming because we're losing our progesterone, which is really super calming for our brain. So we can make up for that by nourishing our gut bacteria, making sure that we're providing our gut bacteria with things which will help to do the job that progesterone was doing as we're starting to drop down in the progesterone.
Well, that's wonderful. Just going, okay, calm the gut, do what we can to calm the gut, feed the good bugs in the gut. I love the idea of doing a challenge and adding in more and more and more of that variety of, in particular, you know, vegetables and herbs, etc., to try and really feed the different bacteria there, calm that gut, in order to calm ourselves so we don't turn into the crazy ladies so often. And I think I would love to do a whole other talk just on that whole gut brain connection, because I know we could talk literally for hours on that, but it's a brilliant kind of taster into that fundamental part of looking after ourselves in perimenopause. I was going to say it'd be really lovely to take a couple of questions, but before we do, is there anything that you think we've missed out on that you just want to drop in there?
The other, there was one which we haven't really spoken about, and that is stress. And yeah, just that little one, that little thing about stress. You know, and that's where you really come in, Linda, with everything that you're doing around the well-being space. But that's so important for us because, you know, as we transition through the menopausal years, we will be depending upon our adrenal glands to help us with the production of our sex hormones. You know, our ovarian production of estrogen will be declining, and we will be reliant upon our estrogen coming from our brain, you know, coming from our adrenal glands. So, you know, we need to be thankful for our pre-menopausal years, for our ovaries having been able to provide us with these hormones. But then now it's time to look to our brain and our stress, and look to that to be, you know, making sure that we are looking after ourselves, you know, looking at self-care, thinking about mindfulness, thinking about just that whole, like, what foods will our adrenal glands like? You know, when we are stressed, we really deplete vitamin C, for example. You know, so think about every day, are we eating enough vitamin C rich foods? I'm not talking like you're going to have scurvy if you don't, but we need really good amounts of vitamin C. So your kiwi and your oranges and well, all the kind of all the fruits really are very good. Vegetables are a great source of vitamin C. So yeah, so stress would be the other thing to think about, and yoga, meditation, mindfulness, breathing, you know, breathing through our nose all helps with, you know, oxygen delivery to our cells, and just that calming side of things, just supporting our adrenal glands. So that would be the only other bit to mention.
And it's great to understand the why. You know, I think a lot of us have been that A-type personality, been busy juggling all the things, the career, etc. And we come to this point of our life where we're like, doesn't seem to be working anymore. Can't have all the balls in the air anymore without turning into the crazy lady. And I think when you understand the importance of, like you say, the adrenals, once our ovaries are not giving us that testosterone, and we only produce a tiny amount of testosterone compared to men, and once we burn through that testosterone, we go into our adrenals and we start to produce, you know, the cortisol and the adrenaline at the expense of estrogen and progesterone. And so when we understand that, okay, so the only way really for our body to be able to calm those adrenals, nutrition aside, is to activate the vagus nerve, to extend the exhalation, to consciously calm the whole central nervous system down. Then our adrenals will go, oh, cool, she's relaxed, I can do my job properly. But if you're revving still and you're breathing up in your chest and you're not taking yourself into that parasympathetic calming nervous system, you're always in the sympathetic state, then yeah, our adrenals are basically like two fingers up, and I'm sorry, but I can't produce the hormones like I could. And that's why I think it's so powerful when we go, okay, in this 1 hour I've got this week to do something for self-care, instead of maybe getting on the treadmill and going for a run because I'm like, oh, I've got a bit of chub around my tummy, I need to burn it off, a bit more adrenal stress. Instead, I'm going to go for a walk in nature, or I'm going to do a guided meditation, or I'm going to slow down with a yoga practice and going into a nice shavasana. I'm even going to spend 5 minutes with my legs up the wall, because that is actually going to help that brain adrenal axis. That is going to help my body process the insulin. That's going to help me lose weight around my tummy. And it's going to help me feel better, not turn into the crazy lady, be a better mum, partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You know, getting yourself into that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest state, is so important. I find myself sometimes clenching my jaw, and I just have to tell myself, just relax your jaw, you know, like for me, that's when I can tell that I've got a little bit too much on, and I'm not breathing properly, I'm not relaxed, my teeth are clenched. And so just loosen your jaw. You know, so it's just simple things. You can start to be really in tune with your own cues. You know, am I breathing enough through my nose? Am I breathing slowly enough? You know, and that'll just activate that rest and digest nervous system that we need, and it'll calm down the adrenals. So yeah, it's really, yeah, great advice.
Permission for self-care. Permission. All righty. Ladies who are here, has anyone got a question for Nick before we wrap up? Lou, let me just take you off mute. I'm just going to hang on a second. I think you might have to take yourself off mute, Lou.
Okay, there we are. I think, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for that, both of you. That was really, really thought-provoking. Just in terms of diet, I'm trying to change my diet at the moment because I'm 44. I'm definitely in the peri-menopause window. I've had a real avalanche of symptoms I've personally found in the past 6 months. It hasn't been a gradual thing. They've just suddenly really come on. So just in terms of diet, I'm trying my best to really change my diet, but quite honestly, I'm a mum to 3 little girls under 8 years of age. I can sometimes be quite time poor. So I am looking towards sort of vitamins and supplements at the moment and probiotics. Are there any particular ones that you'd recommend that are go-tos, not to replace the diet, but where you might just need that little boost, if that makes sense, just to help if
Yeah.
it is a challenging week, for example?
Yeah, when it really will depend on what kind of symptoms you are experiencing. So is it more around the hot flashes, or is it the sleep, or is it the kind of the brain fog? What would you say would be your main?
I found with me, it's definitely more the brain fog. Just my memory has suddenly, it used to be really razor sharp. I was quite good at memorizing things, remembering appointments without writing them down, for example, in terms of school commitments, outside commitments, work commitments. But I found my brain has just become very foggy. That's the main thing I've noticed with me. And just the slight shift in moods as well, in terms of feeling absolutely fine and suddenly feeling quite low, to be honest, which isn't me at all. So I recognize it and I positively do something about that. So I am trying to, as I said, trying to address my diet now, because we have got lots of autoimmunity problems in my family, and my 3 girls do too. So we're trying to approach it from a positive nutrition perspective. But sometimes I feel that I just need that little something else just to give me a little boost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I find omega-3 fats really helpful with anything cognition and brain related. And in terms of autoimmunity, it's right up there with, my number one type of supplement that I look at for autoimmunity. Is very hard, however, to get that into children because mine didn't really like the taste of the oily fish, and he was too small to take the capsules. So, and you can't hide it, no matter where you try and stir it into yogurt, it still will taste of fish. But yeah, I think an omega-3 is really good, and you want to get a really good quality. Omega-3 supplements can be quite varied in their quality, and if they're oxidized, so if they are a little bit rancid, then you won't be getting the benefit of the omega-3. It'll have been converted into quite, not damaging, but it just won't have the anti-inflammatory effect. So I would look to a really nice, good quality of omega-3 fatty acid with a good proportion of EPA and DHA, which are the omega-3s that you really want. Omega-3s are interesting because at the minute there's a lot of talk about vegetarian omega-3s not coming from kind of fish, but the evidence really isn't there to support we can convert those types of omega-3s very well into the EPA and the DHA, which if you imagine kind of you're taking an omega-3, those are the special ones that we really want to be sure we're getting in a supplement. So I would got to just check that it's difficult to say because obviously you need to look to see if you're on any medications. You have to be very careful about supplements if you're taking medications, and just check there aren't any contraindications. But an omega-3 it's good for brain health, and it's anti-inflammatory. And when we think about kind of brain fog, it's symptomatic of there being a degree of inflammation going on in your brain. And on the diet side of things, just really focus on not too many carbohydrates, which will be kind of promoting the brain fogginess, and maybe just some moderate type of fasting might just help with like the sharpness of the brain as well. So nothing crazy, because we want to support your adrenals, and your adrenal glands won't be too thankful if you're doing kind of long extended fasts in this period of your life. But a nice overnight between 12 to 14 hours without eating overnight, and then make sure you're having some protein by 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, don't push it much later than that. And that might help as well, just in terms of kind of mental sharpness.
That's brilliant. Lou, I think I'm going to take that advice too. And I'm sure that it's not just you. That sounds like a very common issue. You know, once the estrogen starts to drop away, you know, right on that age when, you know, progesterone's dropping away, estrogen's starting to fluctuate. But to improve the quality of that omega-3 coming into your diet, that sounds really sensible. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? No? Otherwise, you know, we could carry on talking. I know there's lots we could talk about with a vegetarian diet, a vegan diet, histamine intolerance. I really want to touch on that at some point. And we could talk gut all day as far as the gut biome goes. But I think we've spoken for an hour. We've got some brilliant pearls of wisdom. I just want to say thank you very, very much for coming and sharing your extraordinary knowledge in this area, Nick.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I love it. And, you know, I'd love for to do this regularly and have an opportunity to just share the knowledge. I think is just great. Let's just, you know, get all the women around us knowing more about health and nutrition.
Brilliant. And Nick, just quickly, where can people find you if they'd like to talk to you individually, find out a bit more about their particular issues? Where can they find you easily?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and on Facebook, NV Health, so Nicola Vaughan Health, and NV Health NV Health UK, sorry, almost forgot it then. And then my website is nvhealth.co.uk. I run a clinic online on Zoom, so more than welcome to catch me there as well for a chat if anyone wants to talk about things. But yeah, it'd be lovely to make this regular, and then we can continue to share knowledge.
Amazing. You're a star. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up there. Thanks for joining us, ladies. Take care. Bye.